Hello, world.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
There.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. It's like I've forgotten how to say hello. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Life with CACA. I'm your host and fellow producer, Carolina Groppa. So, week after week, I've been bringing you conversations with established producers from all walks of life. One of the reasons I started this show was to give you, my fellow listeners, more insight into this crazy life and career of a producer, to give you access into the many career paths that exist under the umbrella of producing, and to show you that if you want to be in entertainment, there's a world of possibilities waiting for you beyond some of the more visible positions. This week, however, I wanted to do something a little bit differently and go the other way. I wanted to talk to somebody who is young and interested in producing. So, I'm very excited to share my chat with Zoe Jaeger, a high school senior and aspiring producer, who is also going to be interning on the show for the next few weeks. Very, very excited. I honestly can't recall the last time I had a conversation with a 17-year-old, but it was really incredible to learn about the anxieties her generation feels. Mostly about the climate and not the robots taking over like I had predicted. It was great to dive deep into what the word impact means to her. And then she asks me for life advice, which I hope you'll stick around until the end to hear what I said. All right. Well, let's hear from Zoe. Awesome. Okay, so this is very exciting. For me, for you, I hope, but for me, very exciting because, one of the reasons I started the show was with the hopes to reach young people like yourself who are in these sort of crossroads in their lives and they're taking these big decisions towards their future and they want to explore different career paths in entertainment. So yay, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So, okay, tell us a little bit about you.
So my name is Zoe. I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior in high school. I go to school in Burbank. I have moved many times. I think like 5 or 6 times. That's a big part of who I am. I'm in the film program at my school. So because I go to school in Burbank, we have all these awesome connections to different production studios. Like Warner Brothers and Disney is right across the street. And so we got this big grant to make this incredible cinema art studio. We have a green screen room and a control room and a sound recording booth. It's amazing. So that's what really got me into film, obviously. My mom is a pastor. My dad was a retired professor. I have a sister. And yeah, that's kind of a rough outline.
Okay, a few things I want to back up to.
Yes.
You mentioned off mic you were born in Champaign, Illinois.
Yes.
Which I think is important because a dear friend of mine, Sam, is from Champaign. So he's going to be really happy because I don't think I know anyone else from that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Sam? Do you know he's a guy? Do you know him?
I don't know.
He's like 20 years older than you. It'd be weird if you knew him. But no, so it's Champaign, Illinois, and then you moved a ton.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Moving so much.
So the first time I moved, I was really young. I was like 2 or 3. And it didn't affect me too much because I knew that I was only moving for a year and then I'd go back to Champaign. The second time got a little harder because I was old enough to have like relationships with different people. And then the third time when I moved from Los Angeles to Chicago, Illinois, I climbed up into a tree for 2 hours and said that I was not coming down until like we weren't moving. And then I got hungry, so I came home. But that was definitely the worst one. But then I guess moving from Chicago to Los Angeles, and then obviously now we're back in Los Angeles, that one surprisingly wasn't as hard, but I felt as though I was leaving more people behind because I was older. I moved back here when I was 12. And like one of my best friends lives in Chicago, and it does get hard to try to communicate, but obviously because so much social media and I can text her, FaceTime her whenever I want to, it does make it a lot easier.
Yeah. So when you went through those transitions of all those moves, and as you got older, obviously every time it got a little harder, you had more relationships. How did you get through it? What kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with my sister. We're very close in age. We're 15 months apart.
She's older?
She's older, yeah. She's always been my best friend. We are so close. And knowing that I've always had her there, even when my best friends were in Chicago or my best friend was in Los Angeles, I still had a best friend with me who was traveling with me and stuff. Yeah. And then she just went off to college, which is a weird adjustment, but...
Is she nearby?
Yeah, she's at UCLA.
Oh, okay. So you'll see her.
Yeah, I've actually been like too many times. Whenever I have an emotional crisis, I always just drive down there because I need a brain break.
Yeah, I don't blame you. The school that you're in, it's not a magnet school. It's not like a specific film. So it's just an incredible place, basically?
It's actually a private Catholic school, which is a little interesting. And we have, it is the only school managed under a hospital, actually.
How does that work?
It's called Providence Health and Services, and it owns a bunch of different chains at St. Joe's, which is right down the street. That my school is connected to it. It's right next to it. So we have a medical focus program, we have a technology focus program, and a cinema focus program.
It's like so very LA. Of course, that would be like the three things.
Yeah. It is a very Los Angeles school.
And how does it work? Is it like just almost like an elective, or is there a tract that if you really are interested in cinema studies that you can kind of take and decide when you enter high school?
Yeah, so you decide when you enter it, but you can also transfer in the first 2 years. After that, it gets a little hard. But so it's something that you have to apply into, and you need to obviously know that you want to go into it. It serves as an elective, like it takes up an elective time slot, and it counts as an elective on your transcripts. But it's not a class that anyone can take. You have to be in this specific track.
So what made you want to do that?
Well, I had always been interested in the entertainment industry, and I always knew that I wanted to go into the arts, no matter what. I always had a fascination for film. My dad and I would watch... every day we would sit down and watch a film and analyze it. And I didn't realize that was a kind of rare thing until I got into this cinema arts program. I guess that it was just a passion for the arts and a knowledge about film. My dad also was a professor of film, so
that'll do it.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite film then growing up?
Well, see, it was actually... It's a movie called Love and Death, directed by Woody Allen, which is a little controversial. But I saw that movie when I was like maybe 5 years old and just thought that it was hilarious. Old? Yeah.
How do you retain? I don't have any memories from myself at 5, much less of a movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always had a very, very powerful memory. I remember everything. If you give me a song, I'll listen to it once and remember it.
Good to know.
Yeah. But it was weird. It's about this man who doesn't want to fight in like a Russian war, and it's hilarious.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to watch that. I feel very like not a cinephile because I've never heard of it.
No, it's not very well known, but yeah, that was my choice.
Okay, this is a good moment to talk about just how very lightly you were also an acrobat for all these years. Like, I went to follow you on Instagram and I was like, oh, who is this girl in Cirque du Soleil? And you were like, oh, BT Dubs, that was me. Like, just no big deal. I used to do that. I was like contortionism almost, right?
Yeah, I was technically a professional contortionist.
Oh my god,
so
that's incredible.
Thank you. I actually I started when I was 4 years old. I just went to a birthday party and it was at this circus place and I turned out to be pretty good at it. So I started taking classes, got better, and we moved to Chicago, and then I did circus at a place called MSA, this incredible, amazing circus place, and then moved back when I was 12 and started doing it professionally with a company that I'm not going to name. But honestly, it's a very emotionally challenging extracurricular, if you can even call it that. It was kind of like Dance Moms. It's like a very passioned coach.
That's a good spin on that.
Yeah. She was very intent on us being literally professional circus artists. Some girls considered dropping out of school and doing like homeschooling for circus. I was training anywhere from like, I don't know, 8 hours a week to 16 hours a week. It is backbreaking, and it's actually really emotionally draining because you're told you're not good enough for this act, you're not strong enough, you're not skinny enough, you're too old, you're too...
At 12
years old. Yeah.
Okay.
She would tell people, like, I would be 12 and she'd say, she's 9, he's 8, stuff like that. Even when circus wasn't my passion anymore, I still had to pretend that it was. It was so exhausting, but I'm still glad that I did it.
Yeah. But at that time, did you think that was a career path you wanted to take? Like the other girls, you were really all about it?
I was really all about it. And we went to Montreal for a show, and I got to go to the Cirque du Soleil headquarters, and I was like, I'm definitely going to be here. I know that I need to be a professional circus artist. But I mean, that time has definitely passed. I've technically already had a professional circus career, and
no big deal.
I do not want to go back.
Wait, what made you change? That was like your passion, and you did it for so long. At that time, that was your whole life.
It was.
To have that identity and then say, well, actually, never mind.
Art coach was, well, just to say it plainly, she was really crazy and really emotionally abusive. And so a lot of girls were actually leaving at that time to a new studio. It was actually founded and run by the mother of a child who went to my old circus place, my old company, and was just horribly emotionally abused. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I need to switch. So then I switched to our new studio, which is this incredible, it is just amazing because it's run by people who have seen the bad side of the circus industry. It felt more like a hobby as opposed to a career. And then I, along with this incredible contortionist, her name is Georgia Bryan, look her up on Instagram, we founded this nonprofit called Yes Circus. It's called Youth Empowerment Social Circus. And we wanted to bring our passion for circus to children who otherwise wouldn't be able to do it, either whether that's children in underfunded areas, or like we do work with this nonprofit called Camp Del Corazon for children with heart defects. And that really rekindled my love for circus because it had everything that my experience lacked, which was an actual love for what we were doing. So I actually still do that. I don't train as much, but I still do work for the nonprofit, which is so much fun.
That, like, you've done so much at such a young age. Have you always been this way? Sort of motivated, energetic person, young person?
Well, I've never not had a project. I can't not have a project.
Sound like a producer already.
Yeah. I would always be baking, or I'd always be cooking, or I tried to start like my own restaurant in my own house. When I was like 5, I've always been very motivated to do something and not even be successful, just occupy my time with the things that I love. And yeah, I've always been that way.
That's interesting. Well, it's working out for you, clearly. Your Cirque sort of career ends. And how old are you at this point?
About 15, I think.
15, okay, which is, it's like not that long ago, but yeah. So then at that point, you already had enrolled in the school where you were sort of on the cinema path. And what made you decide to do that path? Did you have a vision of like, okay, I want to write, or I want to direct, or I want to produce? Was that ever super clear?
I never had an idea of the exact role I wanted. I guess I have always had a fascination with writing. I would always write screenplays. I still have screenplays from years ago. That obviously made me want to actually produce them, but really it was just a fascination with it. It wasn't a specific role or a film idea. It was just, I think it looks fun. I am excited.
Yeah. Well, and now you're, 5 months away from graduating?
Yes.
And so you're almost done with the program. And what have you taken away from it so far?
So much. Always meet your deadlines, which is so hard. But so in our cinema arts room, there's a word written on the wall. It says impact. I have always taken that as like, we have the potential to make an impact on anyone. You can choose to do that in different ways. I choose to do it through the arts. That little word, no pun intended, is actually really impactful to kids like me, because in a world that is just full of noise, you feel like you can never be heard ever. But with film, you feel like you have a voice. And so I'd say that's probably what I've taken away most, is that I know I have a voice now.
Yeah.
I know that I can make an impact on someone, even if it's, it doesn't have to be a Hollywood producer or a big time name or anything, but even just a friend or a teacher or, a peer.
So what is your dream if you could look into the future and say, here's the kind of impact I want to make? Like, if I can start planting the seeds of what you think your legacy will be, what does that look like for you?
That's a big question.
We go hard. We go deep.
My dream, I'm not entirely sure where I want to end up, what I want to end up doing. Right now, I definitely feel like producing is that. But one thing that I would really love to finish and expand upon is this documentary that I made in February, May, about the stories of persons experiencing homelessness in North Hollywood. That was the most important project I've worked on, because it involved real stories told by real people right there. It was really raw. If that could that same passion, that same excitement that I had for that project, if that could carry into my future ones, that would be great. And it doesn't have to be documentary storytelling, but that same principle of taking real stories and real life events, I would love to, that's probably my dream too.
Yeah.
To capture real people's stories.
Okay, it's a good dream.
Yeah.
We'll check in with you in 5 years
Yeah.
and see how much you have done. I know you will work towards it and achieve great things. I'm not even worried about it. But so why then producing? And this is a good time to segue into, how do you define producing and a producer? What does that mean?
So I don't know too much about it. Like, everything that I know comes from your podcast and like my teachers.
Yeah.
But I think producing is really intriguing to me, because you get to make a lot of decisions. You're creatively and logistically. Well, at least the type of producing that I would plan to do is like, I'd want to choose the scripts that I wanted, that I was passionate about, and work with and build a team around me that I would work well with. And that would be, a team of women if I wanted to, or people that I felt comfortable with. And there's so much control that you can bring to producing or to your project. And I think having that type of influence is really great. And I've always been kind of a leader, I guess. And one of my directors in the drama department at my school says that this is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, that to be a good leader, you have to surround yourself with people who do things way better than you. And I feel like I'm really capable of doing that and recognizing other people's talents. And so the idea of bringing all those people together to work on one project, that's what really draws me to producing.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think, there's so many shades of it, as I'm sure
Right.
you've experienced through the podcast, and different people who do something that's can feel very like granular within the umbrella of producing. But I think the overarching idea is, you're responsible for putting groups of people together that you think are going to work well within the confines of the time and the schedule and the budget and all of the limitations that one project has.
Yeah.
And in spite of all the things and through all the odds and all of the things that can and will go wrong, you have to be the person still keeping the train on the tracks, because you have to get, like, once the train takes off, you got to get to the end of that that station. You have to complete the project and see it all the way through. And one of the things that I've realized in having all these conversations is that the kinds of people who are drawn to producing have a tremendous sense of integrity for themselves and for signing up for something, even if it's a horrible experience, even if sometimes, yes, people quit, but more often than not, the people I know, I can only speak for the people I know, they will see something through to the very end because it's their integrity to do so. And I'm the same way, even if it kills me, and I think that that's a really important personality trait in a world where it's so easy to jump ship. It's so easy to be like, well, I'm bored, and to have FOMO and FOBO and all of the things and see the next thing and think, well, I'll just go over there. That's probably better. But yeah, I think it takes a lot of courage to sign up not knowing what it's going to be and then get to the other side. And I was telling your mom a little bit before, that there's so much that's not in our control. Right. And so we can only control the process. We can only control the experience that we're creating for the people that are in that experience with us. And I think if you can live a life where you are creating that for others and they can say, hey, yeah, maybe the project didn't turn out so well, but man, like working with Zoe is so great. She makes me feel seen. She makes me feel heard. I think that you are then paving the way for the next generation of producers who are operating in that mode, that you don't have to be a dictator or a terrible human or miserable to be a strong leader.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's funny that you say that, because my mom, I've just finished a lot of college applications, and they always ask you, like, how would your family describe you, or what are 3 words that would best describe you? And my mom always says that it's my perseverance and my determination. And I always see something through, regardless of if I'm literally just dying through it.
Yeah. Do you agree?
I definitely agree. I think that trying to produce a film is so challenging.
It's very hard.
It's so hard.
Actual insanity. Like, when you think about
incredible, because you have such high expectations for even being in production, and then the outcome of the film, and it is never as good as you want it to be, or it's never the way that you planned it to be. It's challenging to, I mean, obviously I'm a 17-year-old and everyone working with me is not getting paid and doesn't have a ride and stuff, all different types of stuff. But to actually get a short film done is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah. People don't realize how much it takes to do anything.
Yeah.
And like, I get this all the time, like, oh, I just want to do this short. It's like 20 pages. It's like a 2-day shoot. And I'm like, that's a month to prep that. Yeah. And at that point, you might as well make a feature, because the amount of work that goes into it is the same. And yes, of course, there is the, like, pick up a camera and shoot, do whatever. Like, I think that's a really valuable tool and skill to develop. But I think at some point, especially with the way that the internet has changed the way, and having a really good camera on your phone, like, there is no excuse for having terrible quality audio and video. So you really have to come up with a plan. You have to know what you're shooting. You have to, like, think things through and have a vision for that thing. Otherwise, it's like, it's reality,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't think people want to see that.
You never see it. And even if you've done it before, even if you've learned from your mistakes, you're still going into it thinking, oh, I'll be fine with 2 days. I'll be fine with these 3 actors or something like that. But then once you actually get on set and start filming, you realize this is going to take me way longer than I had actually thought.
Well, and then you realize how much it is a collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have all the dreams you want of like, well, this is going to take me an hour to do.
Yeah.
And then if those actors are not on the same page
Yeah.
as you, guess what? It's not. Everybody has to show up and do their job at a specific moment in time and do it well for the wheels to turn. This art form is so collaborative, you know? And I think Hollywood and egos get a little bit in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more that as you are starting out in your path, no matter where you stay, if you decide to not be in producing, whatever you end up doing, I think knowing that it's always about the collective, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And even in high school, even with 17-year-olds, there are always people willing to help you. I never really realized that there are these incredible filmmakers who have their own opinions on it that are probably better than mine. You really never realize how important all those people are and how important it is to pass them the baton and say, you can take over this part because I trust you more than I trust myself to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, then just clone yourself and do all of the jobs, and that's great. You know. But so in high school, gosh, like graduating high school, it's such a big transition into this other world, this mystical world of like the afterlife of everything you've known. How are you feeling about that? And it's a big question, and I'm sure it changes daily. Yeah. So like this is just a moment in time, you know?
Yeah. So it's definitely exciting, but it's actually really scary, and maybe not for some of the reasons that you might think, but being 17 years old, even, 17 or younger, there has been so much worry about the climate. You wouldn't expect that to be the first thing that I'd be anxious about.
The climate, the actual
climate, like the environment. And I know that I'm going into a world and a system that is entirely against me. There is little policy protecting us with little restrictions on things like vaping and things that are put into our lives to strategically harm us. It's really scary knowing that you are 1 in 10 million. And already our voices aren't being heard by policymakers. We are going into a world that is dying. And it's something that we're going to fix or have to tolerate until we die. And I just think that's a really terrifying concept. It's this thing called climate grief that a lot of kids my age have. And it's something really specific to our generation, I think.
This is the first time I'm hearing about it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know a lot of people who are climate advocates and very much for the environment, but to hear that kids your age and your generation, that is like a concern, I think as like a older person, the perception that I would have is that everybody would be panicking because of technology and how for the entirety of your awareness of self, the internet pretty much has existed. Everything you've done has been documented. I grew up in a time when like I didn't have a cell phone. Like I barely even had a beeper when I was in high school, I wonder if our generation, my generation, looks at that and thinks that that's the issue that everybody is dealing with, like feeling disconnected and feeling lonely in a world where there's so much connection, but you're so disconnected because of technology. So I would think that would be the concern of like how social media is impacting your mind and influencing you and seeing images and being bombarded with images, all kinds of images of, sort of body image stuff as a woman and everything under the sun and having that constant stream of stuff in your face. But to hear that above all else, not that I'm saying that's not a concern, but it sounds like above all else, the climate is the thing. It
really is. And I actually just recently had this amazing opportunity. I got to go to this climate change convention and interview a climatologist. And I asked him, this isn't the exact question, but I essentially said, is it worth kids in my generation, having children? And he kind of took a step back and said, like, I can't believe that's something you're thinking about.
Yeah.
He just kind of thought to himself or said, I'm so sorry that you have to think about that. But to me, it felt so casual. It felt like a question that, you'd answer like any other. And then I realized how sad that is, that I need to consider not having children because I would be bringing them into an environment that would potentially kill them.
Yeah.
Growing up in a time where actually social media is a real blessing when it comes to learning about the environment, because without it, I wouldn't be educated. So many people wouldn't be educated about this. So many kids my age wouldn't know anything about it. It's just a really sad predicament that we're in.
It's interesting, but it raises this philosophical question of like, well, do you negate yourself that experience regardless if you know that the outcome may not be favorable, but maybe there is no guarantee. Who knows what the world will look like in 20 years. But if it is a 50-50, which gamble do you take?
The man that I interviewed said to have children, and that he would encourage it, and that I should never second guess my opinion because of an external factor. And he said that, the environment will obviously do what it does, and there's not that much that we can do to stop it, but it shouldn't keep us from living our lives. And I think that's something that climate grief plays a big role in, is having kids my age second guess their next steps. Like if somebody wanted to go into a field that isn't contributing to the fight against climate change, are they contributing? And I've thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't go into film, maybe I shouldn't go into producing, but study something like policy where I could make a direct change. But this man, Chip Fletcher, he said that there is always something that you can do regardless of the field. You can be a sustainable producer. You can be a sustainable person.
Well, and you can also have multiple identities. You can start as a producer and then 20 years from now, 10 years from now, go be a policymaker. You can always redefine yourself. Like you don't have to be one thing. And that was something that if I could go back when I was your age, a lot of my anxieties were not at all about the climate. I didn't think about that at all. But it's a different time. But I it was really focused on, I've always been a very driven, motivated person. And because my parents immigrated here, I immigrated here.
Really?
I came to the States when I was 9. And so ever since I understood the sacrifices my parents had made, I put this pressure on myself to really go for the things I wanted and work really hard. Right. And that's what I did, and I just spent 20 years basically doing that, which is really great. But like my anxieties were always, I want to make sure that I'm always working hard towards the things that I want so that I can take care of my parents one day. But looking back, if I could go back, I wish that I had just enjoy the ride a little bit more. And everybody says that. And it's so annoying because like when you're in it, I remember when I was your age, like I would be like, you're just a dumb adult. Like you don't understand like what we're going through, blah, 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 because it's so far removed from the experience that you're in, regardless of the climate grief. I do hope that you are taking the time to really sort of relish in these moments that you're living. You really are just seeing that there are like micro baby steps that you can take as one in 10 million to make a difference, make an impact. So,
definitely. I agree.
This thing about social media is really interesting to me. And I apologize if I sound like the grandma being like, what are the kids like? The pros and cons of social media that I experience and that a lot of people I know experience are rooted in a lot of anxiety, because now we have the whole world to compare ourselves to at any given moment in time, right? What we have, what we don't have, what we're achieving, what we're not achieving. Instagram is like fast food, it like tastes really good going down, but you never really feel that great after. And I would say for the most part that's true. So I'm curious, having had social media in your life since a much younger age than I did, you said that there's been a lot of pros to that, but have there been negatives? And if so, like how have you and how has your generation, to the extent that I know you're not speaking for all, 17-year-olds in the world, but like, how are you guys grappling with that?
So social media obviously does have its pros, like the things that I was talking about. It's a great way to get educated, but it can be really, really, really horrible most of the time. And if I had the choice to not grow up in a society that was entirely rooted in social media, I definitely would. I think that social media really makes you want everything that you don't have, which can be really, really emotionally challenging. It can give you body dysmorphia issues and make you self-conscious physically, but also, you see on Snapchat, my best friend is hanging out with my other best friend. Why wasn't I invited? it really gets you into this headspace of internalizing everything and making everything this huge deal. And then when you're hanging out with this person without that person, you want to post that. You want to Snapchat this. You want to post this on Instagram. And you never really realize this really vicious cycle that you're a part of. You feel horrible. You just think to yourself, they hate me. I'm not good enough. When I go to school on Monday, it's going to be horrible. It's such a weird phenomenon. It's hard to explain, but pretty much you and another person can both come to the same consensus about one another without even talking to someone. I could have talked to someone over Snapchat for years and I've never said a word to them in person and will never say a word to them in person. It's like you have two different lives operating at one time, and it just makes for this culture of internalizing and not verbally communicating when you're communicating everything on social media except for this one thing that you want them to know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem like you're very good at articulating yourself. So do you find that to then only have those relationships where you are not verbally communicating with someone, like what are the dangers of that? Do you see a lot of your other, maybe not you, but other friends really struggle with not knowing which of those two identities perhaps is who they are?
It's really, really challenging. And I've experienced it and my friends have experienced it. It gets to this point where there are people telling you who they think you are, and they're totally entitled to that because maybe that's the identity you've shown them. But then you maybe don't want to be reduced to that. You want to expand outside of that. And then maybe your friends get really confused after. They're like, I thought, you weren't this way or you weren't this type of person, but maybe after all you were. That's something that's happened to me recently, and it makes for a really chaotic sense of self.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. It's such a tumultuous time because you are still figuring out who you are. I mean, I think we're always figuring out who we are. I think that's the big myth that adults don't talk about, is that like there isn't a certain achievement you unlock or an age that you hit or the house or the kid or whatever the thing is that you then go, oh yeah, this is like who I am.
Right.
I think that there's always a sense of evolution and growth and reflection. Yeah. But I do think so much of your core values get formed at that age. And so, I would hope that somehow your generation is navigating that to the best of their ability. So. And like my fear is that we're going to lose the ability to communicate.
Yeah. I think that it's possible.
And that it's going to become like, I can't read a person. Yeah. Like I literally can't look at your face and read you because I've been only interpreting what I think is happening because of a screen or emojis. That's really dangerous territory. To me, that's scarier than climate change.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that, so here's one thing. I really hate when people, like, let's say, maybe ages 60 and up, tell me that my generation isn't social or isn't the way that they used to be or something like that. Because of course we're not. We're in the 21st century of all this new technology. But I have friends in like New York City who I haven't talked to in years, but I know exactly what's going on in their life. I feel like I just totally went off topic there. But
it happens. It happens. No, I mean, I think it's good to take a positive spin on it because I do think I don't want to be morbid and dark and depressing about like the future, but I am curious about how all of these things that I'm affected by it, and I'm a woman in my early 30s who like didn't grow up with any of this stuff, and to have known both worlds, like my generation of millennials, like we're the last people who will have known both worlds, life before the internet, like, which is insane considering how new it is and how much it's changed so fast.
It's really, really challenging. Kids my age will always present themselves as cooler or better or a bigger partier than they actually are. Honestly, we don't know one another. We don't really know one another. Not to the point that I'd expect, like maybe you knew your friends when you were in high school. We talk, we get close, and we get emotional with one another. But realistically, it's so hard to actually understand what is going through someone the mind of someone my age. I can't even understand it. Like, I don't understand how parents understand it or teachers. It's scary to see people go through those changes, or to go through those changes yourself. Because you presented yourself one specific way for a really long time, if you ever wanted to break that mold, I do think this is something that's specific to high school also, but if you do want to break that mold, all eyes are on you, you know? Yeah, it's something that's definitely perpetuated by social media.
Yeah. Okay. So now that part of your life is about to be over, that chapter in like 5 months.
Yeah.
Ish. What are you most excited about for what's next?
I mean, obviously, I'm super excited for college. Wherever I end up going, I know I'm going to love it. I've always been a very independent person. You know, if I'm cooking something, I told my mom I want to cook by myself. I don't need your help. Like, if I had trouble with homework, I can do it myself. I want to do it myself. When I started driving, it was like this whole new world, this incredible experience. I'm really looking forward to the independence that I'm going to get. And being able to explore different ideas of who I might be or who I might want to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm super excited to get a fresh start away from high school. I'm someone who is obviously really used to change. I really love change, which is weird. Not a lot of people do, but it's going to be so much better than high school. Yeah.
Well, I think that, like you said, no matter where you end up, I'm excited for you. I think you have like a really bright future ahead of you and all the things that you're going to do. And,
Thank you.
And the impact that you're going to make in the world. So
I really hope so.
And I'm grateful that our paths have crossed and now you're working with me for a little bit on the podcast. And
I'm so excited.
I'm hopefully I can bestow a little bit of wisdom and knowledge on you.
I think you already have.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks. But we are almost at an hour. So is there anything else that you wanted to maybe mention, bring up, or that you want to ask me?
Yeah, I guess just any advice that you would have for a 17-year-old or for someone getting out of high school.
And specifically to like producing or in life?
In life, definitely.
That's really hard because I think that advice always comes from like the soul of the person.
Right.
And because I feel like I am very similar to you in a lot of ways, like my advice would be to just, live life, like really experience the full breadth of your humanity, feel all the things, the good, the bad, like don't get yourself into trouble. Obviously, don't go make irresponsible decisions, but also sometimes making an irresponsible decision can really teach you a lot about yourself. I'm not saying go get arrested or do illicit drugs, like even you may, because you'll be in college. This era you're entering of your life is all about that next level of self-discovery. There's so much to experience in the world. So like travel, meet new people, go outside your comfort zone, don't just be so like goal oriented and do this and do that. And even with producing, because I think it'll all come. So much of what I think makes a good producer is who you are and what you bring to the table, because the hard skills can be learned, and all of that will come with time, but developing your soul and your sense of integrity, and you already have the perseverance. So like that's already going to happen for you, Yeah. That's what I would say. Really try to like enjoy your life. You know what I mean? Still care about the climate, but don't let it bum you out so much that you don't enjoy the season of your life. I think that's what I would recommend. Yeah, that would be my advice. Like
that's good advice.
Yeah, that's what I would give myself if I was 17. So, but thank you so much for being on the show.
It was so much fun.
Good. I'm glad. Yay!
I'm so excited.
And that's this week's episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in week after week. Hey, if you don't already, please subscribe, rate, review, like wherever it is that you get your podcast. Tell a friend, heck, tag me. I'd love to hear from you. I'm at Carolina Groppa. The show's at Life with CACA. I look forward to seeing you next week. Beijos.